Hello, welcome to Nintendo Nostalgia. I'm your host, Jacob Rush, and I'm joined by my wonderful one and only co-host, Ryan Black. We are back, and we are playing with Power. Ryan, brother, welcome back. How are you today?
I am good. I am busy at work. I'm the only person in my department here this week. We are short a couple of tier 2 people, and we are short 2 of our customer success people, and also the other one is currently caught in a hurricane right now. So, we're short-handed at work, and so things are super busy, but I'm hanging in there.
Wonderful. Well, I am at home being a stay-at-home daddy most of the time, doing a side project, still on summer break. Love it and enjoy it, but it can get overwhelming when you got all your children at home, but in general, I'm doing pretty good. Let's not waste any time, my friend. Let's get into what we have been radical recting about. Okay, Ryan, anything new in suit your fancy? Any shows, movies, anything you're excited about as of late?
Good question, man. Well, Thousand Year Door is definitely up there. I think it's probably my favorite Paper Mario game now. Which is saying something because Super Paper Mario is pretty big for me. Yeah, so that's cool. I think probably Thousand Year Door, and then probably Super Paper Mario, and then third is probably Sticker Star. I mean, the original.
OG. Okay.
But yeah,
very nice.
Gosh, what else have I been radical waxing about? That's about all I've been doing is Mario pretty much in my free time. I've been playing, Dragon Quest IX still, but I haven't just really, focusing on Mario. I've still got other RPGs to do this year, and I'll probably be doing Final Fantasy VI in my next game for RPGs, like I was talking about before. So looking forward to that. But yeah, just in general though, I've been loving Nintendo keeping up on content for their NSO. Seeing a couple of those games drop, Donkey Kong Jr. Math and
oh yeah, God must play.
But I've just been enjoying that they're bringing out these more niche titles, and they brought out Golf, which is the game that came to the Switch. Originally, it was a hidden firmware update.
Oh yeah,
and Iwata was honored in that one, and they patched it out the next update. But it's kind of cool to finally have that game on the Switch now, officially.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
That is cool. Is that it?
I think that's it, man.
All right. Myself, I've been just kind of casually playing games. I've been playing. So I beat Zero Mission, and then I 100%ed Fusion for the first time. That was fun. Thanks to your help, I figured some stuff out. And yeah, essentially, I mean, if you miss some stuff, you kind of just have to beat the game and then go back and things are unlocked, and then you can really finish everything out, which I don't really like. But overall, it was fun. It was nice to finally 100% that game. I've never done that for that one. Then I started Mario and Luigi. I've never played the Superstar Saga game. Kind of getting hyped for Mario and Luigi Brothership later on in the year. So I was like, I'll dabble in this. I've kind of been doing a trend where I've got on my Switch right now, I'm playing smaller games like the Metroid games and just micro-sized games where it's easier to just jump in for a half hour, maybe an hour, stop whenever, just constantly save state. And then I'll go play a bigger game somewhere else, which was Paper Mario. But right now it's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which I've been playing. I'm not super far into it, but I'm enjoying it. It's much harder than the last game, the remake. I just feel like the battle system is way harder. I feel like I keep getting rolled by enemies. And there's just a lot more complex things you can do with it. And I'm still trying to figure it out. I am slowly. I'm figuring it out, doing a lot of side missions to build up my quest and my journey, to build me up, my characters, so I'm able to progress in the story. I really feel like I have to do the side quest just to have enough experience to level up and then get past tough chapter piece. So really been enjoying that. But gaming wise, that's pretty much it right now. School is going to start at the end. It starts at like the first week in August. So this is the first time I'll be back, like really back to work since paternity leave, which was way back at spring break in March. So, I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm excited to go back. It's just, it's kind of hard to put on that full-time work hat when you've been off for so long.
Yeah.
So, but with that said, we've got a big topic to talk about today. So I really don't want to waste too much time Radical Rexing about Ryan. It's fun. We're going to devote if you are a longtime listener, in the past when we were very consistent, we liked to dedicate the month of July to handheld gaming, mainly like Game Boys and things like that. And today, we really want to emphasize just the lifespan of all of the Game Boy Advance era, from Game Boy Advance to Game Boy Advance SP and to the Micro Game Boy, which was very, very weird and came out at the very life cycle end pretty much for Game Boys before DS came over and took over the handheld scene. So, with that said, let's get to it. Can you kick us off here, man? When did the Game Boy Advance originally launch, and what are your initial memories of the Game Boy Advance and maybe even SP? And I don't know if you ever had a mic. I don't think you had them. Did you have a micro? Did you get a micro?
I never did. I always wanted one, but I could never justify the price tag on that thing.
Yeah, it's hard to justify, especially for knowing the Game Boy system was dying out. And DS was coming. So, yeah, I never did have a micro, but I did have an Advance. Then I bought an Advance SP as an adult, and I don't know where it's at the moment, which kind of makes me sad. So, but go ahead, Rand, take over. When did this stuff first start launching?
So, Japan, it was March 21st, 2021. Of course, they get things first. But then it finally got over to North America. I don't know if it was just a shipping issue or if they were just definitely doing separate launch times at that time. But Japan got it first, and then just a few months later, in June 11th, 2001, we got our hands on the advanced system of the Game Boy. Love it. It was clear and purple. If you got that version, they had a solid purple one as well. But I think it really went well with the GameCube of that, of that same color. And it was meant to be paired with that. But I had the classic see-through purplish look. Absolutely loved that system. And it's actually my first console mod. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Yeah, it's kind of funny, my history with the Game Boy Advance. It was not something that I adopted right away. I didn't care so much about, and it was other things that got me into the Game Boy Advance, not the actual system itself. I had heard some things about the volume being a little funky, and not being the greatest quality. And then, there wasn't a backlit screen, which was kind of crazy, and I was hoping that they'd have a worm light come out eventually for it, which they did have that available, and had to get all the accessories, and I wasn't quite ready to let go of my Game Boy Color at the time, so which was also that purple color. Yeah, I kind of got the Game Boy Color a little bit late. It was kind of a I don't know if it was a Goodwill find or a garage sale find or whatever, but I got that a little bit late, and so I wasn't quite ready to make the jump yet to Game Boy Advance when that came out, but I did get that eventually, and absolutely loved the form factor of it. And I don't know, it kind of reminds me, at the time, it kind of reminded me of an oversized Digivice from Digimon, just in how it was shaped, and that was kind of a hype thing for me, for sure. But nothing like the software wasn't really something that sold me on it. I'm not too big on the SNES era graphics, and that was pretty much what this was, maybe just a little bit better. But it wasn't quite a big like jump for me as I was hoping at first. And then they tried to do a lot of kind of that 3D look in the 2D space as well, mimicking the SNES generation. And so like I wasn't completely sold on that, and I did a lot of GameCube stuff. I was doing a lot of home console stuff at the time. So I finally got to a point where I wanted to upgrade to the latest thing, especially with connectivity coming out with my home console. So but we can get into that a little bit later. What are your first experiences with the system?
Yeah, so I don't really remember it even being advertised. I can't say I had at this time. I didn't have Nintendo Power. It was more something I just kind of learned about as it happened and started to see it maybe like in stores or through the grapevine, like from you. But I got this. As a matter of fact, I'm positive I didn't even ask for this, and my mom just got me a Game Boy Advance. I'm holding it in my hand, my original Game Boy Advance. This is mine. It's beat up. It doesn't have a back. I lost the back a long time ago. But I got it for Christmas. I got it for Christmas in like 2002. Yeah, it's like right when I got my GameCube. And my mom just bought it for me. I didn't even really, like I said, I didn't even ask for it. It was one of those gifts where it's like, wow, holy crap, thank you. And I got, so I'd say maybe I got this in 2001. I'll say that. And I got Jackie Chan Adventures was the only game I got. I got it for Christmas. Played as much as I could. Thought it was fun. Really cool to have this new piece of hardware. And again, it was just not expected. And I'm glad she did it because I played a ton out of this thing with Metroid Fusion coming just the next year and Metroid Zero Mission and other games on it. I did enjoy it a lot, and that was cool. As I think back to it, I'm looking at the system and I'm kind of like, you know what? It's very weird. Like this system was kind of being advertised as the portable Super Nintendo, 16-bit. But as I look at it, and there's only a BA button, and the whole SNES era had X and Y introduced. And I feel like that was kind of a silly missed opportunity for the games they made. I mean, they straight up ported Super Nintendo games to this thing. And
yeah.
And yet we're missing the Y and X features. I mean, obviously they made it work, but
we did get some extra
buttons. It's just kind of a weird.
But from the, it was 2 extra buttons upgraded from the original Game Boy and Game Boy Color and what have you.
Yeah, we had the L and R. That was not on an original Game Boy. You are correct. But still, just a little weird. Mm-hmm. A weird design, I guess. And then obviously when they hit DS, you got those X and Y buttons added in with the shoulder buttons and a touchscreen. So, I mean, this was great. And I've said it many times on this podcast. I'm not really a traditional handheld gamer. I much prefer the home console experience of sitting down at home. And so, I'm always playing my GameCube. If I had to ask for a game for Christmas, a couple games, I'm honestly asking for GameCube over Game Boy Advance. Yes, I had some games, but I won't lie. I didn't have a large library of Game Boy Advance games. Outside of the Metroids and Pokemons, I can't recall too many games that I got for it. I did get got the Donkey Kong and Mario vs. Donkey Kong games, and thanks to your mom, I did get those, and Jackie Chan, and I'm sure there were some others I'm forgetting about, but in general, I didn't have too many, and it makes me sad because I think there's I missed out on a lot of good things, honestly. I really did, looking back at it. But, so we evolved, though. Nintendo does this, kind of like how we had the original Game Boy. Then they kind of went to a Game Boy Pocket Slim advertisement, pretty much the same thing, just in a smaller casing. And then I And then you mentioned the color. They came out with color. They did the same evolution for this. They had Game Boy Advance. When did the Game Boy Advance SP launch?
Good question. I don't have that actually pulled up. Let me see here. I should know because I got it on that launch date, but okay, it looks like 2 years later, on February 14th, 2023, we got the Game Boy Advance SP, souped up, backlit version with the clamshell design. So sleek, so sexy.
Yeah, I do. My biggest nostalgic memories for this one, though, Ryan, is you. I only knew pretty much one person who had it, and that was you. And yours was, it was beautiful. I won't lie, it was a beautiful system, and it was very enticing.
That blue one.
And yeah, you had the blue one, and I'm looking at it right now online. And gosh darn it, I want to know where mine went. Where the heck did it go? It's got to be in this house somewhere. What happens when you move so much, you start losing things.
And you got kids.
But I do remember admiring and thinking it was so cool that you had that. And I didn't portable game too much, so I don't think I ever felt the need to get it. But I definitely remember it being awesome, for sure, very awesome. So why all of a sudden are you there for launch date for this one, Ryan?
Well, simply, Metroid killed my Game Boy Advance.
What?
So I used the shoulder button a lot, and I pressed it heavily a lot, and so my right shoulder button was going out, and so I had to mash it really, really hard, and it was killing my fingers, and I was just ready to upgrade, And also backlit, why wouldn't you? I was so excited about that, and
that alone is worth the upgrade.
And rechargeable batteries, so that's a big thing. My Game Boy Color, I had rechargeable batteries for it, and then I kind of waited around and wanted to get rechargeable batteries for the Game Boy Advanced, and so I did have rechargeable batteries for that. And then I'm like, well, this is the perfect no-brainer. My buttons aren't working right. I'm using rechargeable batteries, like a third-party rechargeable battery, and they run out really fast. And I have to use my warm light with it, and it's just this is just things are building up against me going and doing these things. And I did my research to see what games wouldn't be compatible. There's certain things that don't work if you turn them upside down. But overall, that was something that it was a no-brainer for me. Yeah, I kind of didn't like the shoulder buttons being as tiny as they were. That's really my only real complaint with the system. And that's not saying much, So that was, and the buttons were lower profile and clicky and not gummy like the Game Boy Advance. Just overall, I felt really, really comfortable with it over the squishiness of the Advance's controls scheme. So I think it was just all around a perfect upgrade for me to make that spring and get that.
Yeah, it's definitely a superior system. It's beautiful. It's sleek. It was a new design, a clamshell. That's not your typical design at that time. And I think that it influenced a lot of what the DS became. The DS really did take on more of that clamshell experience and look for that sleek feeling. I feel like Nintendo tried to change their approach to systems, whereas before they looked like just fun kid toys. I really feel like the Advance starts to change. I don't know, the image a little bit of what it was to play a Nintendo, especially a handheld, because it looked legit. It looked like a business professional tool, and heck, they make flip phones that look awesome, and they look like this. I see students at school with flip phones that have a screen on the outside as well as the inside, and you can't tell me that was not inspired by Game Boy Advance. And I won't lie, it makes me I kind of want to get one of them instead of my traditional iPhone route, just because it reminds me of Game Boy Advance. But
Oh, I almost forgot. Yeah, I don't know how I forgot this. But I was thinking back on why I modded my original Game Boy Advance. I didn't actually trade in my original Game Boy Advance. Because the screen was broken. It didn't show anything anymore. Like there was no video coming through at all. And so like I decided that I've got my Game Boy Advance SP. And I ordered this kit online. It's pretty early for me ordering things online, but I got this backlight kit to replace the screen and make it backlit, and got that installed on it, and that was pretty cool just to have that experience. And it worked for a little bit, and it didn't like end up panning out ultimately. But it was kind of cool to have that, give some life back to my Game Boy Advance, and I kind of carried that forward later in the SP's life. Because lo and behold, the same thing happened with my SP. That right shoulder button just would not press down anymore. Like, and he was even smaller.
You were the right side, man. You're just hard.
My fingers. Having to press that button down really hard, and like some games, it was not great. It was not a great experience at all. So I was ready to upgrade to make the jump to the DS by that time. I didn't actually make the jump to the advanced, micro, just because the Game Boy Micro, I guess I didn't call it advanced in the title, but the Game Boy Micro was it came out around the same time as the DS, so it kind of was pointless.
Right, it was weird.
But
like, why are we doing this?
This is
came out 2005, right?
At the time, I guess, to get one. But it did have faceplates, which I thought was really cool. You could change out the different looks of the faceplates, make it custom.
That was cool. Something they should have done from the beginning.
I wish I would have gotten a hold of those. That was one of the reasons why I didn't get it, because I couldn't find any faceplates that I liked, and so I just kept on going by. And
it is. It's so weird because the biggest thing too is that the DS played Game Boy Advance games.
Yeah.
So it's like, what are we doing? Why would I get this tiny little thing that I can barely hold? I'm just going to cramp my fingers, probably. Barely see.
Apparently it looks really good, but...
yeah, not worth it. It was a bizarre business decision by Nintendo.
Yeah, it's definitely on my hope to own it someday, but it didn't really have... I don't think it had the connectivity, really. You could connect to a GameCube or anything like that. It was just... You just play it on the go. It's very much like those Game & Watch things that you have.
Yeah.
It just has like one or two games on it. Yeah, you can switch out the games, but even then the cartridges stuck out. It was so small. It was
right. It's
kind of crazy how they couldn't even fit the whole cartridge on the whole, on the hardware. But
very weird. Very, very weird. It was pointless, and I wonder if they lost money on it.
It's possible that they did. But yeah, that one was I guess unceremoniously released on September 19th, 2025. Came out in Japan September 13th.
Oh, five.
So
not
2005. Yeah,
2025 is next year.
And that came out in Japan just a few days earlier on the 13th. So things are starting to close the gap between releases. And then poor Australia and Europe got it November of that year. So
good holiday gift if you wanted it. But DS came out that year, right? You said?
Yep. I'm pretty sure they came out the same year. At least it was announced. It was announced in the same time, I believe. I was like, why don't you just wait for the better system?
Yeah,
now?
It was at that E3, that big E3 that you had on DVD that we watched.
That was fun.
Gosh, man, those were the freaking days. Mm-hmm. But and Nintendo, I don't know why they released it, but they did. So it's a part of the Game Boy family library. But so I mean, fond memories. You got any key fond memories of the Game Boy Advance era, Ryan?
Yeah, one of the big ones, I started doing some gaming with my sister, and so we played a lot of WarioWare Mega Micro games together on the Game Boy Advance. Absolutely.
That had the twisted version, right?
Yeah, we
you
got
could, turn it.
Yeah, we got the one that had the accelerometer in it. It was late in the Game Boy Advance's life cycle before as the SP was releasing, so they had it built into the game where you could switch the orientation, so you could do the gyro upside down with the SP, which I was thankful for, because unfortunately my beloved Kirby Tilt and Tumble no longer worked once put in. It kind of worked with an advanced, but it no longer really worked once you put it in a Game Boy SP. Plus the orientation would have been upside down. There wasn't a way to flip the gyro or anything like that. So it's just unplayable essentially. And that game became a thing of the past up until recently when it came out to NSO, which is awesome. But that's another time. But yeah, just that was memorable for me. Like, just keeping up with the next system because something went wrong with a button or a screen or something. So not only was my button a pain in the butt to use on the SP, but also my screen eventually just blacked out. I played it so much, connected to GameCube games, playing like all the time with it. Like eventually the screen just kaput. So I much later I acquired, I think a housemate gave me their Game Boy Advance SP. It was a black one, and I had the blue one, and so like I was just like, I'm gonna tinker with this, like I did my Game Boy Advance, and before it, I put a custom screen on it with the backlight. I took these apart, and I took the two systems that I had and combined them into one working one, and so it's blue and black, and the color combination was just perfect how it worked out. So it was like I have a working screen on this one, but there was something else not working on it, like maybe the sound or something. And so, like, when I combined the two, I had one perfect working system. And so that's my Game Boy Advance right now is a Frankenstein model of the two, which is blue and black, which looks really great, let me say. And not only that, but the black model was the one that had the different colors of backlight. Instead of having it, like, turn off the backlight and then turn it on, the black model was a newer model that came out where you could have it at a lower backlight or a brighter backlight. And so, like, that basically upgraded my system to be the better version, just all around. And I was actually into the habit of doing things like weird attachments and stuff for my Game Boy Advances anyway. I had portable batteries and stuff like that, and actually bought extra batteries for my SP, so that eventually when I've outplayed, the battery grew and the batteries would get bloated over time. And they'd stop holding charges, so I'd get another one, and I'd have I'd switch that out and switch out for a new one, and actually did that with my DS as well. I got a new battery for it, and so just kind of carried that on with kind of being modular and modding it. And I think one of the coolest things that I love, other than like GameCube connecting, like which is in its own thing pretty cool, connecting it using it as a controller and using it as gameplay enhancements for the GameCube. I think probably my favorite thing was the gimmicks and proprietary things that they did during this time, most notably the e-reader. So the e-reader was this device that it was this game that had this big like swipe reader, kind of like a credit card reader on coming out of it. And you would swipe these cards with dot codes on them, kind of like QR codes, but like long lines across cards. And the more cards you had, like the bigger the game, the more cards you had, and the more dots you'd scan in, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You'd scan in 5 and you get an entire game to play. And they were very arcade style games. So as soon as you reset the system, like you lost that data, it was just, like pinball, like classics like that, of NES classics, and nothing that would stay around once you swiped it. But then you'd get also bonus in-game items. It was the early DLC for that time, before the internet did DLC stuff, where you could get a pack of e-reader cards, and you might get you get randomized items that you could unlock for like Animal Crossing on GameCube, and you could swipe it and get special things for Pokemon. You get special mini games, like one of those puzzle slider games, and certain Pokemon cards. They started printing on Pokemon cards, so you can swipe them and then play mini games or collect certain things or unlock things in your Game Boy Advance games by using the e-reader and like link cable and stuff, because it had a link built into it. It had to actually pass through. Like you put the link cable, it sat on top of the Game Boy and plugged into that link cable port, and it had a link cable port on top of it, so you could pass through with that. With the Advanced, the SP, you could put it in there, but it didn't have to have the pass through. It was an option. So it was a really, really cool device, and it was kind of silly to like swipe all these cards, and like the music was kind of cool. It was very, very reminiscent of the Game Boy camera and how it was presented and just how it ran.
Right.
And it was really, really charming. To be able to get like special designs and special items and things, in addition to just being able to play like mini games and trying to collect them all. I've got to get my Pokemon cards, and if I get these 3, like I swipe all of them in, and I can play this Ponyta mini game where I like jump over hurdles and stuff and get the highest score, and things that I was all into, like playing games that most people will never get to play, and that was the way to do that. It was like some people never got to play these special mini games that were made exclusively for this e-reader thing. It never came out again, and so like that was a cool thing to have those first experiences that no other Nintendo fan would ever have. That's kind of my bragging thing. And then they also even came out with a full Mario Party game, which I still have, by the way. They have Mario Party e-reader. It's a card game that you actually like swipe and do mini games on the DS with the e-reader. And it's like one system, and you can play it. But you can also play like cards on a mat and things like that. So like it's this like party game that you can play with cards and physical media. Very early like augmented reality stuff that Nintendo was working with on the Game Boy Advance during that time.
Yeah.
And I think like one of my cards like got damaged. I think it was a Luigi card that I need to get replaced. But other than that, the set is like mint. I actually have it sitting in a Rayquaza Emeralds like tin. I've got my game, the game mat, and there all that the e-reader stuff in there, just ready to go for if anyone wants to play it. But yeah, it was kind of cool. You like get coin cards and like it was a different experience, a new way to experience Nintendo, in ways that gaming hadn't really been done like that, in that kind of media. It was just, I love the experimental Nintendo, and this was like right in that moment, and it was very special for me. And like, if you scan like, I don't know, 5-10 cards to play Ice Climber, like, is it worth it? It's okay. You have to do it slowly, and it'll like beep at you if you didn't do it right. And so like, it took some time, but once you got the game scanned, you could play it until you turned the system off, and then, you had to scan them all again. But it was the experience, and it was something that got me so hyped for Nintendo around that time. So those are kind of my favorite memories there. What about you, man?
I'm really glad that you brought that up. It is a unique thing, and I don't want my my lack of handheld gaming to take away from really with the magic that the Game Boy Advance era brought. And you already mentioned it once, but I think what I take away from it most was how much they really involved that connectivity into the GameCube. I mean, they did that in a lot of key games. You could do unique things. It was after you beat Fusion and Prime, you connect the two, and one you would unlock the original Metroid game on Prime.
So cool.
And then you get to play you can replay the entire game in the Metroid Fusion suit from that Game Boy Advance game. It's fascinating. Yeah. Fascinating secret things like that. I mean, you just got done playing Mario, or you're about to finish playing Paper Mario. I mean, that chapter 4, you're logging into a Game Boy Advance on the wall to find data, and I just think that's so cool. A lot of great franchises were born on this system, like the Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga started here, and they progressed from there. And even WarioWare started on there, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
I
a lot of good things came from that.
Four Swords Adventures. Nintendo really just pushed a lot of this. They try to continue to. I mean, they started it obviously in the 64 days, but it just continued on here.
And Chronicles with the compatibility controller for that.
Yes. I mean, and Wind Waker, you could use your map, I trying to remember exactly, but like you had like the Tingle Tuner on. You could like map and map out like where treasure was on the Game Boy Advance.
Yep, it was so helpful to find the missing Triforce pieces you had to piece together from the ocean. Like it was almost essential.
It's almost like the Wii U, except for our Game Boy Advance was the gamepad, and we used it for a specific thing. Yeah. So it just did a lot of fun, unique things. The system, and it really did stand the test of time. It was a 32-bit system in a handheld format. It's not known for the best sound chip, music-wise, but in general, overall, though, I think it was a great system for Nintendo.
Yeah.
And I know they make like retro Game Boys now, where you could buy them and they're crowdfunded, whatnot. But I sure would love Nintendo could just invest in a Game Boy style handheld thing, something that's cheap to make, but they can pump out some quick, easy games and put it on there. I know you can put it on the Switch, but it would be.
It's just a continuation of their classic line, like Nintendo Classic and SNES Classic. It's that line, and it would be kind of cool to see those come out in handheld. Like they're in the business of even making the controllers for Switch, so they're obviously making older hardware. I don't see why they couldn't. Yeah, it's like probably outdated tech, and they probably couldn't get it exactly right. But like a souped up future version of the Game Boy. Is that appealing, or does Nintendo want to capture the classic feel with that original screen? Perhaps maybe a little bit of a more crisp screen, but that would be kind of cool to have that. And
heck, make them like a classic system. You could just give us a Game Boy Classic, a Game Boy Advance Classic, and you see all those cheap hand-me-down knockoffs at the holidays, where they got 200 million games on them and they're illegal, but like Nintendo could easily do that with their library and just sell it for a holiday stocking stuffer. $100. Here's a Game Boy Advance Classic, and you got all these games.
Yeah.
I think that would be so freaking cool.
It'd be pretty cool.
And I would buy it. I would, just for the novelty of it. But well, Ryan, any final thoughts on this episode as we want to kind of round it out here?
I just want to comment that like Game Boy is not dead, in the respect that like people are like trying to make new games, for that, put them on carts for the system, like aftermarket.
Right.
So it's kind of cool that people are doing that and just trying to keep that alive. I have a lot of memories and just some good, some bad. Like I would get some cheap games from like the local Kohl's when they had it on sale. Like I got like Spyro and Crash Bandicoot, and like they cross each other's worlds, so you're playing like, I don't know. It was weird. I had some strange games like that, and just like I got some of the cheaper games, and that was when I started really like, man, I have to go like Nintendo brand like stuff, because like, these cheap games just aren't good quality and they aren't fun to play. That was kind of like also kind of experimentation time for what I liked in video games, just I found out I spent tons of time playing Pokemon alone. Sapphire was my version, and never did play Emerald or Ruby, but I played the heck out of that. And then I never picked up the Fire Red or Leaf Green either. But that's something else that was offered, was wireless communication and trading with the Fire Red and Leaf Green. It had a dongle you put on the Game Boy Advance to do wireless trading. It's crazy how that's like commonplace nowadays, but.
I'm glad you brought those games up real quick.
A Pokemon box, even you could put your Pokemon in a box in the GameCube.
That was cool.
And
it was
Battle Revolution, or sorry,
it's kind of
Pokemon
sad.
Coliseum 2, Gale of Darkness.
So many. I mean, it's kind of sad actually, because this era is when Pokemon started to become not fun.
Yeah.
For me, I remember getting Sapphire, and I specifically remember sitting at your place in the living room with the couch that was like up against the wall before you went to the kitchen there on the right side, and I was playing in the grassy area. I'm just thinking like, man, this is just more of the same. Like, it's just the same thing. It's kind of like I'm just starting over. And I remember that clear as day, and it's where Pokemon, I beat Sapphire, but that's just where it started to lose its luster. And because it lost its luster, I never got the Fire Red or Leaf Green remake, which today is just blasphemy. Like, if they would, like, I would totally eat that up.
Yeah. Even
though I just said I don't like Pokemon as much, I would totally eat that up of a reimagine of the original area and the traditional game, not like the Hey You version, but like the whole remake of the game. I would totally buy that. We got
hints of that with the Heart Gold and Soul Silver for DS. So,
right.
Like, that's definitely kind of that feeling.
Man, I should have. I wish I was more excited back then. I would have loved both of those. Red and silver version they're my jams. That's where my nostalgia lies the most. So, well, Ryan, why don't you tell everybody where they can find us, my friend?
Sure thing, man. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, Pandora Podcasts. You can also find us on social at Facebook. You can find us at Nintendo NOS, on TikTok, Nintendo_NOS, X Twitter at Nintendo_NOS, on Instagram at Nintendo NOSIN. shoot us an email at nintendonostalgiain@gmail.com. And you can also give us a call on our Nostalgia Hotline, share your memories, and show us some love at 317-969-5690. That brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for listening this week, and we will catch you next week. Later, Preston.
See ya.